Captain America: The Winter Soldier. This one's probably my favorite just solo Captain America movie. Like, I obviously love Captain America: Civil War, but I think with this one just feels like the most like realistic, the most grounded. There's just like the most tension filled with it, and I think because the Russo Brothers and the writers, Christopher Marcus and Stephen McFeely, along with Kevin Feige, they were really inspired by like 1970s political thrillers like 3 Days of Concord. And I know Robert Redford was a star in that movie. So it's really funny that he's actually in The Winter Soldier as the main villain. So I think that's really cool, like Easter egg that they have in there. But yeah, I mean, there's just really cool action, really cool suspense, really cool drama, a lot of twists and turns. And speaking of action, the action scenes are just like really intense, and like they're just really, they just keep you on the edge of your seat. Just starting off with the opening scene on the S.H.I.E.L.D. vessel where, Captain America and Black Widow have to like infiltrate the vessel. Initially, their mission is to, just rescue it because it's been taken over by pirates, and, they have to like rescue all the S.H.I.E.L.D. agents that are, held up within it. But then, Black Widow has her own secret mission that Captain America finds out, which I think that's like another cool aspect about this movie is just kind of like the relationships that form. They're like the characters like really like grow in this movie, especially Captain America. He has his whole arc of he starts off being very patriotic. This is like post First Avenger and then post the Avengers. He's very compliant with the government, and this is like the movie where he really kind of finds like the cracks within S.H.I.E.L.D. and like the overall government and everything. And I think one of the biggest twists in the movie is just the fact that Hydra has been operating within S.H.I.E.L.D. this entire time, and they have like the Winter Soldier with Bucky Barnes after his accident, and they brainwashed him to kind of be this assassin throughout the decades to carry out all these different secret Hydra missions and assassinations. And one of them is the Stark parents, that like Howard Stark and his wife were killed by the Winter Soldier, and that gets brought up later in Civil War. Yeah, there's just like a lot of like just political intrigue that's involved, and just the big twist of S.H.I.E.L.D. collapsing at the very end, and the whole mission of like Project Insight of having like these kind of like targeted assassinations with the helicarriers and everything. I know another inspiration for like the writers and the directors were like Edward Snowden with like like the leaks with like what's going on with like target assassinations and surveillance. And that's a theme that they wanted to bring up in Winter Soldier, where Captain America is kind of struggling with this whole idea that Nick Fury presents to him about like, I thought punishment came after the crime, and Nick Fury saying like S.H.I.E.L.D. takes the world as is, not as we want it to be. And this whole tension, I think it's just like a really good setup for the turn that Captain America has. And then obviously we'll get more of that with Civil War, with this whole turn of like kind of going rogue and everything. But I just feel like this is really like where the Marvel Cinematic Universe got like really serious. Like they really like set the tone with like the first Iron Man movie with like how serious it is, and then it kind of becomes like more comedic as it goes along. With other movies that came in, like Thor gets kind of like goofy at times with like Dark World, and then Iron Man 2 and 3, there's like some drama there, but there's still some goofiness. But really with like Winter Soldier is like really where things really got tense and serious. And like I said before, with the whole collapse of S.H.I.E.L.D. and now the characters on the run, like Captain America, Black Widow, Maria Hill, and Nick Fury are kind of on the run, so to speak, or like they're kind of like making their own way moving forward in the cinematic universe. So yeah, I just thought like that was really a cool aspect to it. And I know like the Russo brothers and Marcus McFeely, like they really, with these Captain America movies, especially the sequels, they really want to like push the Marvel Cinematic Universe forward. I know like Joe Russo is saying a lot, like he wants to have like disruptive storytelling where you think like the story's going to go one way and then suddenly there's like this left turn that's really unexpected. So I really appreciate that he kind of has that theme, that the Russos and the writers have this kind of theme throughout their movies, like throughout all the other movies, like Winter Soldier and Civil War, Infinity War, and Endgame kind of has that through line of like disruptivity within the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Yeah, another aspect is just like the politics of the movie. Like I know I kind of mentioned it briefly, but yeah, you just don't really know whose side like you really want to be on. Like kind of like I was saying before with the theme of like Captain America and Black Widow not really trusting each other at the beginning. Once they infiltrate the S.H.I.E.L.D. ship, they think it's just gonna be like a hostage situation where they have to Captain had to fight off Batroc and get rid of all the pirates and then free the S.H.I.E.L.D. agents. But then Black Widow has like her own secret mission to find the data on the thumb drive that had eventually we find out has the kind of secrets to the helicarriers, their whole targeted assassinations, and the whole theme of like trust, like who do I trust, like are you really who you say you are, and all this stuff. And then it kind of gets brought up again with Captain America and Nick Fury, where he visits the Triskelion, and then he's kind of having that confrontation with Nick Fury of like, I can't go on missions unless I know like who my teammates are, or that's why it's called an army, and then people aren't just like shooting around aimlessly with guns because everyone has the same agenda. With this one, Nick Fury is ordering Black Widow to have this kind of secret agenda going on, so they just don't really know who they should trust. And then it kind of gets brought up where Nick Fury is trying to figure out like what's on his thumb drive, and then he's like locked out of it, so then he confronts Alexander Pierce about it, and then they have like their whole confrontation of like what's going on, like I don't really know what's happening, and then eventually leads into like that epic car chase, which I know is like an inspiration. French Connection was an inspiration for that, and then you realize that Shield's been compromised, and then Nick Fury gets away and then meets up with Captain America and tells him that Shield's been compromised, and then before they can figure out like what's going on, that's when the Winter Soldier shoots Nick Fury, and then Captain America has that chase, and then the mystery kind of goes on from there. So yeah, I think it's really cool. Like for the first half of the movie, you don't really know what's going on, and then Steve Rogers has his confrontation with Alexander Pierce, and then Alexander Pierce is like someone killed my friend, like I'm gonna find out who it is. And then the whole epic elevator fight scene where finally Cap is like broken free of Shield, and now he has to team up with Black Widow and find out like what's going on with this whole mystery going forward. Yeah, I just really appreciate the fact that Captain America and Black Widow are like teamed up with each other, because with the first Avengers movie, Captain America is really he's like the Boy Scout and everything. He's like really wanting to follow orders and everything, and then Black Widow is obviously like the really shady character. So I really appreciate that they paired those two up with each other. And then eventually when they find out that Arnim Zola was kind of like the ghost in the machine, and then reveals that Hydra has been secretly operating within Shield, and then all heck breaks loose with the bombs of the camp that was featured in the first Captain America movie, and then kind of go from there. And then yeah, just really like appreciate more of like the twists and turns that go on, where eventually Steve Rogers finds out that the Winter Soldier is Bucky Barnes, and after he had his accident in the first Avengers movie, he falls down the side of the cliff face after they're having like that kind of train job heist scene, and then Hydra kidnaps him, brainwashes him, and then he becomes like this kind of sleeper agent throughout the decades. So I think that's like another theme that's really cool as well, of like how you can be best friends, become enemies, and then become like friends again. And I think that's a theme that gets carried on throughout, this movie, and then especially Civil War. It's like, how far will you go to help your friend, who appears to be an enemy, but deep down they're still really good. The whole line at the very end where it's like I'm with you to the end of the line. That scene where Captain America and Winter Soldier are fighting with each other at the very end on the helicarrier as it's going down, and then that kind of awakens Bucky within his kind of Winter Soldier persona, and then that kind of begins the process of his redemption that we'll get to later with Civil War, and then eventually with Black Panther and Avengers. I appreciate that they kind of have that through line throughout the kind of Captain America trilogy of this kind of relationship between Steve Rogers and Bucky Barnes, where like they're best friends. And then in the first one, Bucky Barnes was really much kind of like the dominant personality. He was obviously the one who was very much built to be a soldier, and then Steve Rogers was like this scrawny kid from Brooklyn. He's like, I can do this all day and all that, getting beaten up in the back of the movie theater. And then Bucky was the one who kind of had to come and defend him, and then but Steve Rogers still had the heart within him. And then obviously, as we see in the Winter Soldier, he becomes Captain America and then becomes the hero, and then he kind of overshadows Bucky a little bit, so the dynamics kind of switch. But then as the events go on, and then Bucky dies, and then he gets kind of reunited in Winter Soldier. They're very much like equals, where they're both men out of time, they're both kind of like super soldiers. They've been experimented on, and like one's been for good, one's been for evil, and now they have to kind of come together as equals, and then kind of figure out their place in the Marvel Cinematic Universe moving forward. So yeah, I appreciate that kind of through line throughout the Captain America trilogy, and then how it kind of continues on into Infinity War and Endgame.